Good afternoon. It's Lee Cassidy again with our next step in our SMESec piece, where we're talking through the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK's guidance for small business around making sure that your business is as protected as possible. Today, we're talking about end user training and awareness, which I think is really important that you at least do some level of training, but also encourage them to understand a bit more about what's happening with cybersecurity, plus also their responsibilities as well. But make sure you're not looking to frighten people, because we want to make sure that they feel comfortable in what they do and they feel comfortable to actually tell you about situations that have happened. So let's get my slides up straight away. So first of all, what we're going to do is look at that end user education and awareness piece. So first thing to think about is some initial training. So every time you get new staff on board, you need to go through some basics of what cybersecurity is about, what your risk policy is, the way that you actually protect your infrastructure and services, but also how they fit into this and the processes they follow. Ensuring there's clarity around how payments are requested and how those payments are made and how they're validated as well. We've heard of a lot of organizations that an email sent, from a hacker looking like it's from the CEO of the company or managing director to the finance team to encourage them to make a payment quickly because, there's an issue with a particular order and it needs to be paid for quickly to get that order dispatched to our customer or to ourselves. And in fact, it's actually from the hacker and it's going to the hacker's bank account. And, they're trying to just force people into making decisions quickly and doing things. So making sure that people are aware of the process and how the process is followed, all the sign-offs, especially the payments, is a critical thing. So ensuring everybody knows, what their responsibility, how cyber security is managed, and the process that follows payments is the first stage. The next thing is making sure that all users know how to report an incident. So if a staff member gets some kind of phishing attack or some other kind of issue, even if they get a ransomware piece on their machine, what they need to do to report that incident. Who do they speak to? How do they raise it? Is it an internal system? Is it a ticket? Is it raised with an internal cybersecurity team? Or is it an outsourced team that's been looking after your organization's cybersecurity? How is it done and how quickly should they report it? And what kind of information do they need to use to actually report that issue as well? Because we need to make it as clear as possible what they need to do if they do have an incident, but also if that incident turns out to be, something where they've just misinterpreted an email or something, at least they can be then re-educated and they can understand what the situation is. So, first initial training, make sure they understand what we do around cybersecurity and awareness. Also, ensuring they understand the process. And then, secondly, how do they report a situation if one arises? The next thing is where to get help if you're not sure, because it may be that you're not quite sure whether this is actually a problem, that someone's accessed your machine in some way, or you've clicked on, some kind of email link and downloaded some software that you're not sure about, or you've even had a pop-up and you've gone to put your details in there. Who do you need to speak to help you? To make sure that you've not done things that you shouldn't have done, and at least you can then, recover the situation. So how is that done? Is there a peer group? Do you need to speak to someone in IT? Do you need to speak to someone within the external IT security group that are providing that support for the organisation? So ensuring that all users understand where to go to get help, because there's always going to be situations where the end user is not quite sure what they should do, and they need to be told where to go if they're not sure, whether it's a line manager or a specific person who looks after cybersecurity within the business or externally. Next thing is regular awareness training and also safe phishing tests. We'll come on to that. So we need to make sure that all of our end users have regular awareness training about the kind of things that might happen. And it's not always directly electronic. It could be conversations over the phone. could be applications that pop up on devices. So we need to make sure they're aware of all the different types of attacks that might happen and the ways that people are doing this. Also, awareness about how people on social media platforms look to try and harvest information using social discovery mechanisms like asking quizzes about which was your first car, which street you lived on, your mother's maiden name, all these kind of things that could be used to actually reset your passwords. So making sure they're aware of all these things that could happen that could actually cause an issue for them, but also doing some phishing testing. So we utilize the web root technology, but there are a number of them out there where you can actually create a campaign and actually send it to a group or all of your employees and see what happens, see what they do. These are actually set up in a safe environment. So whatever they put into it is going to be kept, safe from the outside world and the hacker. But we can actually see what response we get. Do any of our staff click on the links that are in there when they get this offer for a wonderful free Amazon £50 card and all this, response to an email that comes in where they have to actually reset their password and put their details in for Microsoft Office that's popped up, but is really actually a phishing attack. So let's see how they respond to these attacks. And then what we can do is take that information and then use that to further educate and make them aware of what's happened. So it's an easy way to actually understand what the response is going to be by sending those out. And we should be doing that quite regularly. Each month we should be trying something different with different groups of people to ensure that we are getting the right response from them. They are raising it as an issue, as an incident, and they're not clicking in and entering all their details into it every time that they get these messages through. The next thing is password complexity, and this is always a challenge for all organizations. Passwords are, they need to be safe. They need to be fairly complex. They need to really be above 8 digits in length, and they also need to use a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters in there to make sure they're safe. And they shouldn't be general words or things that can be associated to you and through some kind of social harvesting exercise be captured. Things like dates of birth, postcodes, names of children, names of pets, names of cars, any of those kind of things. We need to make sure that they're complex, but also that they don't use the same password for lots of different services that they utilize internally within the business, or even actually using the same password for business and personal websites. So if they're using it for their Amazon account and other things, there could be a compromise on one of these, personal sites that they're utilizing this password, and then they can actually use that same password to try and get into your Office 365 administration or, the end user's email, for that particular company account. So we need to make sure that they're not reusing passwords across different places. But the other thing we've got to do is make sure that these passwords that they do use are saved in such a way as they don't find workarounds like writing them on bits of paper, typing them into notes that they keep onto their computer or their mobile phone. We actually need to make sure that they're kept in a safe place, a safe repository. So things like password managers are a useful way of dealing with this, ensuring that they're actually good, decent quality ones, normally ones that you have to have a paid for subscription. So ones like FirstPass, LastPass, a number of other different password managers that can be utilized. And also some of the operating systems offer components within them to do them directly as well. So, we need to think about that. We also need to consider MFA adoption. So MFA is multi-form factor authentication, and it could be as simple as a text message being sent where you take the code and you apply the code as part of the login process. It could be also where a little application pops up and you actually say yes or no. So a green tick, yes, that was me. Red tick, no, that wasn't me for that particular application login or login to your desktop. And it could be used actually with your desktop, at your desk. We have a number of people actually utilizing this now as a second form of checking while they're logging in to make sure that they are safe. And also, we could use an authentication key mechanism. So there are a number out there, applications you can run on your phone devices, such as Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, and a number of others. Again, we can actually go in there, find a one-time code, and apply that one-time code for that particular application, so we can actually get in and move on from it. So one of the final things is that we need to have really clear communication. So if we do have any incident, we need to make sure that all of our staff know there is an ongoing incident at the time. We should also make sure that all of our partners and customers know about an incident as well. And I think it is quite hesitant for a lot of people to tell people about it. You'd rather people don't know, but you need to consider the impact of that, that uh, breach and the data that could be lost from it. If you're not clear and open about communication, especially with your user population, it could make the situation much worse because they're not aware of what's going on, and they actually respond to emails or other communications from the hacker in the wrong way. So making sure that we are clear and we communicate to all end users what's going on, but also the actual end users report it quickly that there is an issue, so we can actually deal with it quickly. But the other thing we need to do is afterwards, we need to actually show the lessons that were learned. So, was this because of a phishing attack and someone clicked on a link and they put in their details and that's what caused the initial breach in the first place? Was it through some other mechanism by using a weak password or not using some kind of multi-form factor authentication capability for a particular application set? So always we need to ensure that we're actually looking at this, learning our lessons, improving the way we do things, but again, improving that education and awareness for our end users, because majority of attacks come through our end users, and currently a majority are through phishing attacks. So emails that are targeted at groups of people, specific offers to try and capture user information and then be able to access their machines and from there breach your computer systems. But we need to really protect those systems, but also make sure that the user are aware of what the situation is. So really, really critical things we need to do. Hopefully that's been of use to you. We're actually going to move on to our next, which will be incident management tomorrow. So join me again, 12:30 to 12:45 for 15 minutes of cybersecurity information in plain English, where tomorrow we talk about incident management and how we actually manage that incident through and ensuring everybody understands what's happening. We're responding to the incident itself, and we're ensuring that we learn from the incident again, and then putting that back into our process to improve it going forward. Always ever improving is what we're trying to achieve with cybersecurity. Thank you very much, and hopefully see you tomorrow.